As I was going down the stairs, I heard a couple shots fired. Everyone was freaking out, saying that it was a gun. And as we were walking, the whole class together, I actually was speaking to the suspect, Nicholas Cruz. And as I was speaking to him, he seemed very, I don't know what the word I want to say is, but he was trouble in middle school, so I kind of joked to him about it and said, "I'm surprised you weren't the one who did it." And he just gave me a huh. So that's really what happened.
You were walking down the hall. He had already fired at that time.
Yes, sir, with him.
Weren't you scared?
In the moment I wasn't, because there was obviously definitely another shooter involved, but...
Oh, you think he was not the only one?
No.
The globalists are losing, but they're doubling down their attacks. There's one thing they fear, and it's people power. InfoWars has defeated their censorship so far only because of you spreading the links, spreading the articles, subscribing, clicking the notification buttons, and getting the articles and videos out. But they are intensifying their censorship, so now it's more important than ever to ensure we keep the First Amendment alive and well right here in America and free speech worldwide. So from Australia to countries in Africa, to Europe, to Mexico, to right here in the USA, I salute you all for taking action and defending free speech. We will prevail.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
Welcome to the War Room. I'm your host, Owen Schroyer, and we have been monitoring the details as they're breaking with the Florida shooting. This is something that's not fun to cover. It's not fun to try to get all these details and then report on them, especially when you know people are going to say you're crazy, even though you're just reporting on eyewitness testimonies. This is just what we have to do, because you'll notice that mainstream media, and I won't criticize Fox, because at least some hosts over there are still on the Vegas shooting cover-up. We'll see what happens tonight on Fox News if they choose to report on the videos that we are going to air here today that indicate multiple shooters, at least eyewitness reports of multiple shooters at the Florida shooting, including one testimony of a senior at Marjorie Stoneman High saying that she was actually leaving the scene or fleeing the scene while there was a shooting happening, and she was next to Cruz, who was not shooting. So here's this eyewitness testimony who was walking with Cruz, fleeing the scene of the shooting while the shooting was still happening.
I actually was in the bathroom at the moment, and I came back to my classroom, and I knocked on the door, and the fire alarm went off, and principal came on the speaker and just said, "Everyone needs to evacuate right now." So that's what we did. As I was going down the stairs, I heard a couple shots fired. Everyone was freaking out, saying that it was a gun. And
you know what?
As we were walking,
pause it right there. See, this is why this is so difficult. Because every time you hear something and then you cross-reference it with everything else you're hearing, you connect dots and you find out that something doesn't add up. Like, for example, she's saying she's knocking on the door before the fire alarm went off, and apparently they were being told to evacuate before they even had the code red, which was the shooter code, being alerted. But why would they be telling people to evacuate if there was a shooter going on? So again, I'm not saying she's lying. I mean, obviously she was in a traumatic situation. It's just like you try to absorb all of this information, and some of it doesn't make sense, and it's like, well, what does that mean? So let's go back to her witness account.
Us together, I actually was speaking to the suspect, Nicholas Cruz. And as I was speaking to him, he seemed very, I don't know what the word I want to say is, but he was trouble in middle school, so I kind of joked to him about it and said, "I'm surprised you weren't the one who did it." And he just gave me a huh. So that's really what happened.
You were walking down the hall. He had already fired at that time.
Yes, sir, with him.
Weren't you scared?
In the moment I wasn't, because there was obviously definitely another shooter involved, but...
Oh, you think he was not the only one?
No, definitely not.
Why do you say that?
All right, so bring that down. We're gonna cover more of this obviously throughout the show, and we'll play these clips throughout the show too. It's just, I mean, I'm in no man's land with this. Because again, just like the Vegas shooting, nothing adds up. And you don't want to report the wrong thing. You don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to offend anybody. You just have to report what you're seeing. Again, if she's walking out of the school, fleeing the scene with Nick Cruz just after the alarm went off, then you would say it wasn't even him. But everyone thought it was him. He doesn't seem to be saying it wasn't him. He's been, arrested. He doesn't seem to be fighting it. It's just a weird deal, and it's very tragic. So we just try to sort out and find out what's real.
Holy shit. Oh my God!
So those are the sights and sounds from a recording inside the school yesterday during the Florida shooting in Parkland, Florida. And we are just trying to figure out what's going on. We've got multiple eyewitnesses reporting multiple shooters. You've got what seems to be the perfect patsy in Nicholas Cruz. Now they're coming out, obviously, as we expect, demonizing the Second Amendment and saying that Cruz was a white supremacist. So this is what is breaking right now. As I said, though, we've got multiple eyewitness reports saying there are multiple shooters. And Infowars.com has the story on the shooter that may have had mental issues and was indeed on pharmaceutical drugs. This is an individual that was adopted. This was an individual who had already lost his adopted father and just his mother months ago. He was always troubled. He was setting off fire alarms in junior high school that got him kicked out. He then also got kicked out of his high school for disciplinary reasons. He was not allowed to bring a backpack into school because he was deemed as a threat. Apparently, he had made jokes or direct threats about coming to the school and shooting it up. Students joked about how if it ever happened, it would be him. The FBI was made aware in September that he had made threats to the school. Now, before we get into the multiple shooters, at least the eyewitness reports of multiple shooters, think about this. They always say, see something, say something. Well, people saw something and they said something to the FBI. And what did the FBI do? Apparently nothing. But I guess maybe we should go easy on the FBI, considering they've really got their hands full right now with the Trump-Russia collusion narrative. The FBI doesn't have time to investigate potential domestic terror threats, you see, because they're too busy investigating a fake story that is Trump-Russia collusion. So maybe if the FBI could prioritize itself and quit wasting taxpayer dollars and their time on investigating a story that everyone knows is fake, Trump-Russia collusion, and maybe investigate some of these domestic terror threats they've been warned about, maybe you could stop something like this. But that's not what we get. And actually, we do have stories where mass shootings may have been avoided, and we will get to those in a minute. Now people are being arrested for posing with their rifles online, and that is something that's being pushed for now by the police force there in Florida. They were also pushing for more funding, just like what we saw in Vegas. But now let's go to clip 19. This is a student and eyewitness who firsthand was witnessing the shooting and the carnage there, reporting multiple shooters.
All the kids to go outside so they could start shooting up. So they started shooting from the first floor up, because there's only 2 exits in the freshman building, so everybody started running.
So I'll pause it right there. Pause right there. See, this is why it's so difficult. She says that they start shooting at the first floor up, but all other reports say that the shooter was on the third floor. So again, she could be misremembering, maybe mishearing. I don't know. I'm just trying to lay all this out and flesh all this out. So was the shooter ever on the first floor? Was it always on the third floor? Did they start at the first floor? Were they in the stairwell? Obviously, the shooter pulled the fire alarm to get people into the hall. There was a drill that day. The teachers had been talking about training for mass shooter drills. Apparently, Secret Service has been in there warning them about this. Let's go back to this eyewitness.
Shooters started coming up. So everybody, and then I thank God to this teacher who opened up her door and let all of us in. She got shot in the arm trying to open the door, and then the other teacher, he got shot in the head trying to cut the other students, and it was like an hour, like it felt like years waiting for them. And then after all that, we finally got out, and like they started yelling at us to keep focused and pay attention ahead, the army people, because they didn't want us to see the bodies that they hid in.
Now pause it right there. A lot of people are saying that that's very indicative that she says the army people, that the army was on the scene so quickly that indicates there may have been a drill going on, and that would be why the army was there. Again, I'm just reporting on what's being reported out there. When you talk about these army drills and you talk about these army troops and them being on the scene so fast, people are saying that indicates that there may have been a drill going on. Let's go back.
Mats over them so we wouldn't see them, but there was dust all over the floor from this weird thing they threw in there. They're trying to.
So you think there was more than? Do you think there was more than one
There's
shooter?
3 shooters. That's what I hear.
She says 3 shooters, definitely.
How terrifying! Hold on one second, Mal. How terrifying!
It was pretty damn terrifying because they were putting us through drills, and we all thought this was
call you
a
right
drill.
back.
We thought this was a drill, but it wasn't. And then we just started hearing the gunshots, and it was really terrifying because my class, the class I ran into, he started shooting through the door, and he came through, and he started shooting the cabinets, and that's when he shot the teacher. And then he ran back outside to shoot the other teacher who was closing the other door for the kids, but he didn't get to close the door, and he was just there. And so we were all just sushing each other, like, shut up, just suck it up if you're crying, because we're not trying to get shot. Because he was in the hallway yelling, hey, hey, trying to taunt us and get us to say things, trying to get us outside. And that's when some other kid, like, he ran out because he thought it was free, but he got shot, and then we heard the groaning outside, and we couldn't do anything.
Well, so the shooter, tell me, besides hey, what was he saying during
He
all
wasn't
this?
doing anything. He was legit. He just ran up the stairs, started shooting, and you could see a bunch of kids just going down that way, but stopping. But because the other shooter was coming, so everybody was
screaming and stuff.
The other, so pause right there. So okay, so this is key. She says that the shooter. I mean, I wish she could talk about whether the shooter had a gas mask on or not. I didn't hear a comment on that. So the shooter, according to this eyewitness, is coming up the stairs to the third floor and then shooting at people, and then people are running the opposite direction when, again, according to this eyewitness, people stopped and started running back because another shooter was on the other side of the hall. She says something interesting again later in this interview. Let's go on.
Because they were like, hey, do you hear that loud banging sound? And we all thought it was like some kid joking on the stairwell because they're hollow, so you could just hit a stick and it sounds like it. But then we all were like, oh, this is real. So we all just started running. It was really bad.
Now, one student told me that the shooter was wearing a bulletproof vest and a helmet. Did you see that?
I saw some other kid. When the other kid who came into the classroom.
Some other
he was
kid.
wearing some type of thing, and like, I don't know, but it was like I froze at that moment because you never know, because when the gun is like pointed towards you and the thing, you don't know what to do, and you kind of just like pause and you're just like, is this actually gonna happen? But I felt like he was going after all the teachers because a bunch of teachers got shot, and any of the kids who were in the way, they got shot.
All right. Is that the end of that video? Did I miss it? Because there's another part in that video where she talks about the army people picking people up and putting them in a corner under mats. Did anyone else hear that, or are we missing a part of this clip? I may have to listen to that again in the break. Okay, so we've got that clip. There is also a moment where she's talking about her experience walking through the hallway after the event, and she says that the army people are picking up the victims that are strewn about the hall that got shot, putting them in a corner and putting a mat over them. Now, folks, you don't have to be an expert at crime scene analysis to know that's not how that's handled ever. That makes no sense. Why would you be moving the bodies into a corner and placing them under a map when you know that this is an active crime scene and that investigators are going to be there later investigating it and analyzing it? So what's up with that? Is that just a mistake? Or was there some other reason why that went down? We're going to have more on the Florida shooting on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the War Room. I'm your host, Owen Schroyer, on this Thursday, February 15th, 2018. These are the tough times to be covering news, to have to think about the families and the people down there that have to deal with this, and to unfortunately have to come out here and be controversial in reporting the fact that multiple eyewitnesses have said there were multiple shooters. Now, I missed this the first time we played the clip, so I want to go back and play it again just so you can hear it. This is that last eyewitness we heard from in the last segment talking about the Army people pulling bodies from the hall and stacking them in a corner, which is very strange considering it's an active crime scene. Go ahead and roll that clip.
They got out and they started yelling at us to keep focused and pay attention ahead, the Army people, because they didn't want us to see the bodies that they hid in the corner. They were putting mats over them so we wouldn't see them, but there was dust all over the floor from them.
Okay, so pause it there. In fact, you can just pull that one down because we'll go to the next eyewitness here. So she's saying that the Army people were telling them to look forward so they couldn't see the bodies they hid in the corner that they were covering with mats. Now, again, obviously these eyewitnesses went through a very traumatic situation. Maybe their accounts aren't entirely accurate, but if you take them at their word, you have to wonder what actually happened inside of that school, because the official narrative does not jive with these eyewitness reports. And again, why is the Army on the scene so soon afterwards? Is that standard? It doesn't seem standard. Maybe it is. I know what's not standard. That's moving bodies, stacking them up and hiding them and putting mats over them on an active crime scene. That is not normal. Here's a story at Infowars.com. Responders throw body bag in back of truck amid Florida shooting. And as Kit Daniels points out in this article, that again does not go along with standard protocol. So now let's go to this other eyewitness who said not only that there are multiple shooters, but that she was actually fleeing the scene with the suspect, Nicholas Cruz, while the shooting was still going on. Clip 9.
I actually was in the bathroom at the moment, and I had came back to my classroom and I knocked on the door and the fire alarm went off, and principal came on the speaker and just said everyone needs to evacuate right now. So that's what we did. As I was going down the stairs, I heard a couple shots fired. Everyone was freaking out, saying that it was a gun. And as we were walking, the whole class together, I actually was speaking to the suspect, Nicholas Cruz. And as I was speaking to him, he seemed very, I don't know what the word I want to say is, but he was trouble in middle school. So I kind of joked to him about it and said, I'm surprised you weren't the one who did it. And he just gave me a huh. So that's really what happened.
You were walking down the hall. He had already fired at that time.
Yes, sir, with him.
Weren't you scared?
In the moment I wasn't, because there was obviously definitely another shooter involved, but...
Oh, you think he was not the only one?
No, definitely not.
Why do you say that?
Because when shots were fired, I saw him after the fact. So, and the shots were coming from the other part of the building. So there definitely had to be two shooters involved, I believe.
That's the first I've heard of that. Did you see any other students who were wounded?
So, I mean, it's honestly just crazy. Because she doesn't even, and she might not know that Cruz isn't a student there anymore. She might not know, because obviously that would, stick out to her if she knew that Cruz wasn't a student there anymore and she saw him and she was fleeing the scene with him. Something may have, sparked a thought in her head, like, why are you here? You're not a student here anymore. And then, of course, the fact, I don't know if you can take anything from his response. Maybe he's shocked that she knew it was him, or he's shocked that she accused him of doing it. And then you can tell by her account of the event that she thinks there had to be another shooter, because based on the timeline of her experience and fleeing the scene with Cruz, she doesn't see how he could have been the only shooter. But think about it too. So Cruz pulls the fire alarm, may or may not have set off smoke grenades. I haven't heard anyone report any of a smoke grenade being set off, but apparently pulls the fire alarm to get the students to rush out. According to the last eyewitness, was running up the stairs shooting. And then at some point in time in the midst of all of this, again, I don't know, does he bail? Does he bail on the gas mask, the gun, the smoke grenades, and the alleged body armor? Where was that evidence acquired? Now, here's my biggest question that nobody's asking and that is yet to be answered. Why did the cops, or how did the cops come to arrest Nicholas Cruz? How did they come to determine that he was the perp? Was that because students said, hey, I think it might be this guy, he threatened to do this, and then they showed pictures of the guy? Okay, so let's say that is the case. Well, he successfully fled the scene, and now he's just floating around on the streets an hour and a half, or less than an hour after the shooting, a mile and a half from the scene. He's just kind of floating around. Oh, hey, I just shot at the school. Where am I at? What's going on here? Of course, Matt Bracken was saying on the Alex Jones show, maybe he thought he was going to get extracted from the scene. He shows up at the extraction point and he gets hung out to dry. Where? So again, how did they know? How did they ID Cruz as the perp? Was it because of students saying they thought he was going to shoot at the school? Or did the students actually see him take off the gas mask, put down the firearm, and abandon whatever smoke grenades or bulletproof vest he had on? Because that had to happen if an eyewitness saw Cruz and spoke to Cruz, and obviously he didn't have a gas mask on then, he didn't have an AR on him then, he didn't have smoke grenades on him then, she would have noticed that. Somebody would have noticed that. So he had to have abandoned all that equipment at the scene. So then did video evidence? Did they have video evidence of him abandoning the equipment and then fleeing the scene, and that's how they knew it was him? And then again, what is he doing an hour after the event takes place, a mile and a half away, just trolling around on the street? What is that about? How did the cops come to ID him? How did the cops come to arrest him? How did they determine he had a gas mask and smoke grenades and a rifle? When did he have it on him with him or not? Why? That is a big question, because if he had it with him, then how did he have it with him if an eyewitness was speaking to him before that and he didn't have it with him? These are the questions that are difficult to ask, but someone's got to do it, so that's what we do. We'll be right back.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
Fuel your body with Carnivore, the new digestive enzyme product by InfoWars Life. Digestive enzymes assist in the digestion process and increase the bioavailability of nutrients by breaking down foods into easily absorbable components. They also help prevent discomfort from indigestion caused by fermentation of undigested food particles in the gut. Digestive enzyme production declines as we age. Carnivore is filled with digestive enzymes like those naturally present in the body. Enjoy the full potential of protein-rich foods again. You can eat protein-heavy foods now while minimizing the later indigestion and discomfort commonly associated with high-meat diets. Just one pill with every high-protein meal helps increase the bioavailability and absorption of amino acids, the building blocks to your muscles. Carnivore also contains digestive enzymes to help digest fats and carbohydrates so you can fully digest all types of meals. Don't let a meal go to waste. Use Carnivore by InfoWars Life. Head to InfoWarsLife.com and secure your bottle now. That's InfoWarsLife.com.